Some sucking flowers are good. Others, not so much. Dr. Albert Wily. Once a man with lofty ideas, he would find his ambitions met with the cold, hard slap of reality when his work was constantly shot down in favor of his rival and former colleague, Dr. Thomas Light. So, he did what every reasonable creator does when met with rejection: tried to take over the world! But time and again, his schemes for domination would be thwarted by one annoying blue meddler. And this is why Mega Man crossing over with Sonic makes so much sense. Even though I don't give my attention, or by extension my energy, to Jeff Keighley or his game award advertisements, news of the announcement of Mega Man Dual Override reached me faster than a Mega Buster shot reaching the chassis of a Robot Master that Wily no doubt stole and reprogrammed. Of course, the Robot Masters are half to 2/3 of the game. You still gotta deal with Wily himself, and he's not gonna exactly face you in just his slacks and lab coat. That's the part where he begs for mercy. The Wily machine is either the Mad Doctor's last line of defense, or close to it. I've faced 23 different Wily machines, and they run the spectrum in terms of effectiveness. The rules are simple. I'm counting any large machine that Wily explicitly pilots, even if it doesn't necessarily have the name of Wily machine. And I'm taking all phases of the battle into consideration as long as Wily is still piloting. This means that the Wily capsule will only be taken into account if it's a part of that same fight. With all that being said, here are the designs that Wily's probably studying as we speak. It's game time! While the basic format of the classic series remained largely unchanged, the games did tend to experiment on a smaller scale. Mega Man 2 introduced E-Tanks and the auxiliary items which would eventually pave the way for Rush, Mega Man 3 introduced sliding, and Mega Man 4 introduced the ability to charge your Mega Buster. On the one hand, this gave you a little extra oomph in the early going especially. On the flip side, however, it lessened the impact of the Robot Master weapons to a certain extent. Thankfully, Capcom took this into account with Wily Machine 4. This is the first one to prominently feature Wily's signature skull motif, and as such, has some degree of iconic value. In the first phase of the battle, it flies up and down and fires energy shots while you have to shoot it. The whole face is vulnerable, but you'll have to find an opening to attack. The clever part is when you tear off the front. Now the machine moves side to side and the energy shots fire constantly, but if you can bait them, you can aim for the big light on the front. Problem is, it's very difficult to reach it without Rush, or if you're using the drill bomb, you'll need to detonate it just before it hits. You could even try using the wire adapter with the right positioning. It's tricky, sometimes excessively so, and it is somewhat plain, which is why it's not higher, but with the right skills, you'll be able to pull it off and force Wily to flee. But if you use the Rain Flush at just the right time, you can actually kill Wily. But the game will be soft-locked if you do. Hey, don't look at me! You're the one who broke the first law, you dingus! You know, for a game as gimmicky as Mega Man 8, the final stage of Wily's Tower is basically as non-gimmicky as it gets. It's one of those stages where it's just the obligatory boss rush and then a straight shot to the final showdown. Of course, it can't be that easy, can it? Dr. Wily still has the evil energy after all. And Wily actually does some tactical thinking here, trapping Mega Man and preparing to eradicate him while he's got the poor blue boy dead to rights. And it would have worked too, if Duo hadn't played the tank. And after Proto Man recalls him, Mega Man is ready for some payback. That's right, the whole fight is the backup plan. The attacks for this Wily machine alternate between the spinner on the side and the cannon and its skull mouth, which can be stopped by attacking it enough. And that spinner is both a cannon, which both fires at you directly and fires lob shots that split upon hitting the floor, and a saw blade which can either bounce toward you or charge straight at you. Of course, the target in this fight is Wily's ugly mug. Dodging these attacks will rely on your jump and slide timing more than anything else, and you don't want that laser to go off in your face. Of course, that's only part 1. After that, you gotta face the Wily capsule. Like your typical capsule boss, Wily's pattern is warp, attack, vanish, repeat. This capsule's weakness is the fire sword, but it's a bit of a trap. That's because Wily attacks immediately after being hit, and using a close-range weapon like the Fire Sword will leave you with almost no time to dodge, so you're better off using Flash Bomb or just your standard charge shot. The attack patterns include circular shot spreads, more energy lobs, and homing orbs which are exceedingly similar to its immediate predecessor, except no elemental properties and they're easier to dodge. The fight will keep you on your toes, and if you aren't used to quick responses, you'll have a challenge on your hands, especially since Rush will be your sole source of healing in this fight. Why get rid of E-Tanks, seriously? That being said, it's a lot more fair than, well, you know, and its design is definitely intimidating. There's also a variant in Mega Man and Bass, but that one falls a little short. Especially the GBA version. Damn screen crunch. While Mega Man 11 was a welcome return after a long absence, it didn't quite clear the high bar of the Inti Creates era of Mega Man. We got 2 entire kick-ass generations, plus 2 of the best games in the classic series, which helped fully solidify the retro revival movement. Mega Man 10 was a great follow-up to its predecessor and served as an even bigger nostalgia bomb. We got Proto Man available from the start, Bass's playable DLC for the first time in 8-bit style, 3 special time attack stages featuring the Mega Man killers, and the bosses of the first Wily stage were a throwback to past games. So that begs the question. On top of the Robo-Enza virus and the cure-making machine and all of that, how did Wily fund all of it?
Do what you want cause a pirate is free, you are a pirate!
Hey, still more ethical than how billionaires obtain all their wealth. Wily Machine 10 comes after the obligatory boss rush, which is... Okay, devs, you wore your hearts on your titanium sleeves here. Anyways, the Queen Wily's Revenge is packing enough missiles to make a warmonger's drool a flood hazard. Both gigantic missiles out of the machine's mouth, and smaller destroyable homing missiles out of the side ports. Thankfully, the Beeg missiles are just slow enough for you to jump on them and blast that pirate skull in the face. Simple idea, basic plan, but it's effective, as you use your enemy's attacks to your advantage. Then you blast the skull clean off and expose the cockpit for Phase 2. Now the machine charges back and forth across the top of the screen, firing swirling shots at you before it stops and drops to send a million volts across the screen, leaving the only safe spot under his jaw. Pattern is simple enough, but of course Wily complicates things by casting Hold Person. Or should that be Hold Robot? Thankfully, the electric cage breaks with a few shots, but it could disrupt your rhythm if you're not quick. Unfortunately, I can't include the Genius Capsule fight since that's in the next stage after Wily bolts, but at least this fight delivers a fun challenge. Doesn't hurt that the machine's design is slick as hell. He'll keep you on your toes to be sure, but with good timing and enough ammo, you'll make it out in one piece. But yeah, we can get much higher. Much, much higher, in fact. If you thought the wait for Dual Override was painful, well, longtime fans who were waiting for Mega Man 11 can relate. That 30th anniversary trailer blew our minds though, going through Mega Man's storied history, only to cap it up with wham! Finally a new game! And Mega Man 11 delivered in the places where it counts. Mostly, anyway. At least the final battle with Wily delivered. Wily Machine 11 is designed after a drone, except unlike a drone, Wily is very much manning that thing. And he's packing the leftover missiles from the Queen Wily's Revenge. In the first phase, they're his only projectile, and they come at you fast. If you're not using Chain Blast, you'll again need to jump on the missiles to reach him, preferably with speed gear if you're not confident in your timing. Of course, some of those missiles will rain down on your head. Trying to jump on those will result in damage your insurance won't cover. He will also occasionally charge at you, but you can slide under it with the right timing. Of course, if you're on point, you'll force open the windows before that even happens. Now he'll extend a pair of gears to the ground and activate a conveyor to draw you towards him, while firing spinning balls with his logo on him. Wily thinks with his ego, I swear. And of course, more missiles. Shoot the gears enough, and you can bring him to your level for a well-deserved buster to the window. And then there's the capsule inside, which has so many gears that even the background is affected by it. They're the basis for every single one of his attacks in this phase. Most of the time they're projectiles, which you can either dodge, or since they're physical objects, you can actually shoot them. However, what makes this capsule stand out is that it's the only fight which uses both speed gear, where Wily orbits rapidly around the screen shooting gears, and power gear, in which Wily forms 2 orbiting hammers out of gears to smash you. Wait, did I say both? Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Once Wily reaches low enough health, he activates double gear, creates the hammers, and starts charging you relentlessly. This part really sells the fact that Wily is getting desperate, and since each of his gears has a separate cooling system, he's not gonna overheat. That means you're going to need to be on point with your timing, or you'll have to endure Wily's constant taunting. This battle integrates the game's signature mechanic in a challenging way, and will test your mastery of the double gear in both phases. And the designs of both the main machine and the capsule are very fitting for the game's theme. Here's hoping Dual Override continues the track record. When I said that I've faced 23 different Wily machines, there are two different responses to that statement. On the one hand, people who are unfamiliar with the scope of the franchise might ask how that's even possible, given that there are only 11 numbered entries. The rest of you probably figured out that I'm taking side games into the equation. And those of you who have really been following me know that the Mega Man arcade games are freaking awesome! Both Power Battle and Power Fighters condense the excitement of Mega Man's boss battles into an exciting experience, and Power Battle in particular has a surprisingly unique battle with this game's Wily machine. I mean, this baby's built like a freaking sumo wrestler. In the first phase, the pattern is simple. It'll try to punch, chop, and flick you away like a fly with those remote-controlled Andros hands, then try to jump on you, while you try to get around the machine's defenses. Pretty standard stuff until you deplete the first health bar. And here's the creative part of this fight. How you dealt damage to Phase 1 will determine how Phase 2 plays out. The more likely scenario is that most of the damage was dealt at the bottom, meaning Wily will dock with the top half, which fires spinning spiked wheels at you and tries to zap you with 20,000 volts. But if you deliberately target the top half in Phase 1, Wily will dock with the bottom half in Phase 2, which will either attack you with a storm of missiles or its own massive bulk. These attacks are kind of easy to dodge, but it's the inventive approach taken here which makes this a notable attempt from the Bad Doctor. Oh yeah, then there's the matter of the capsule, or rather, escape pods which he switches between, as you try to deplete his health before the 10-second timer counts down so that you can add that last time bonus to your score for the leaderboard. Not that it matters anyway in the grand scheme of things, since Wily still gets away, and you still get the ending regardless. This is the point in the list where getting inventive with the fight itself will benefit the ranking. I also like the design of this Wily machine, especially how the hands really show the inspiration behind this boss fight. And the remix of the Wily boss theme from Mega Man 3 is a real bonus as well. That being said, it is relatively easy compared to many of the other fights, which is why it isn't any higher on here. Still, if you get Capcom Arcade's second stadium, you can check out this fight for yourself. Even bring a friend if you want. 2 bots are better than 1. Hey Base, what works? Teamwork! Works. The Wily Wars was an awkward case. Only the Japanese and European markets got initial cartridge releases, with the US release being relegated to the ill-fated Sega channel. The development was outsourced to the same company that handled 4 out of the 5 Game Boy games, the debugging of the game was a nightmare, and it remade 3 of the games despite releasing after Mega Man 6. And yet, this package gave Genesis fans the Blue Bomber experience they had been missing out on. And the collection even had an exclusive feature, the Wily Tower. A new sub-game where you could custom build your own arsenal and take on 3 new robot masters based on Journey to the West. Seriously, Buster Rod G is straight up Sun Wukong. As for the tower itself, it culminates in a 2-story tall giant of a Wily machine. It doesn't even have room to make a big entrance, it's just standing there. Menacingly! In the first phase, your target is the leg joint, which you'll need the rising platforms to reach unless you bring crash bombs. The machine can also fire homing missiles out of said joint to keep you moving, and once the blocks are high enough, the robot will kick them at you. Once the lower half is beaten, it'll get into a boxing pose and dance legless like it's the freaking Black Knight.
I'm invincible! You're a loony.
And like a good boxer, this thing is ready to throw hands. Hands which, by the way, have spikes on the bottom and a flat surface on the top. It's pretty clear how you're gonna get up to deal damage to that thing. Yeah, this is why you don't bring your fists to a blaster fight. Just try and stay on top as much as you can. Finally, you fight Wily as he commands the disembodied head of his mech. He spends most of his time out of the reach of a normal buster, dropping bombs on you which only do damage when they explode. If you somehow didn't bring the Elect Beam, which is the only weakness that can hit him in the air, you're gonna have to wait until the capsule starts smoking, which means he's about to crash land. That's the only time you'll have a chance to hit him normally. What makes this formerly Genesis exclusive boss battle stand out is simply how big it is. You basically have to dismantle a kaiju-sized Wily machine piece by piece using the bones the environment throws you, and taking advantage of every opportunity. Of course, how hard the fight actually is depends on what weapons you brought with you. If you know your enemy ahead of time, you'll have a much better situation than if you're going in blind. Still, it's a fun capstone to this collection, but don't take my word for it. You can actually get it now. Mega Man 5 on Game Boy was a thrilling climax to the Mega Man World line. Brand new bosses instead of remixes of old lineups, going into space with Rush, and Wily's new fortress that takes the concept of subtlety and smashes it like a home run out of Miller Park. And it's capped off by quite a gauntlet. There's technically 5 phases to this finale, but the last one is, well, it's the fight with Sunstar. Best Robot Master ever. It kinda overshadows the rest of the fight, but the rest of the fight is still good. It actually starts with a couple of mechanical knuckles from the ceiling. First one simply tries to crush you from above and occasionally shake the floor, with its eyes vulnerable when it attacks. Second one does the same thing, but also fires homing missiles and tries to grab you. Thing is, I'm pretty sure that Wily's big new robot, the Brain Crusher, was controlling those knuckles based on its design. Those arms protruding into the ground? Yeah, kinda clear what's going on. As for the main body, it's got some interesting attacks in its pattern. Starting with a trio of lock-on missiles, easy to dodge, standard stuff. Second, it deploys an electric robot to create a gravity current, hoping to drag Mega Man into the surprisingly non-lethal spikes on the ceiling. Then comes the interesting part, how you damage it. This phase's final attack is to launch a walking time bomb at you. In order to damage the machine, you need to turn Wily's ammo against him by blasting the bomb back towards the machine so that it explodes in his face. Your standard weapons won't damage the Brain Crusher directly, at least normally. If you can use iframes to get inside, you can damage it with the black hole, but beating this phase this way makes you skip to Sunstar. And you have a sense of honor, don't you? Well, beating the first phase normally brings down the house and exposes Wily's cockpit. Now you have to jump over the sparks Wily sends along the ground. Carefully though, you don't want to bang your head on the ceiling. If you play Smash regularly, you should be familiar with short hops by now. Even with the wrinkle of the lower ceiling, it's still a really basic phase. That, and the overshadowing by Sunstar, is what keeps this fight out of the top 3, but the Brain Crusher does manage to keep you on your toes regardless, and the main body still has some inventive ways to damage you, which is why it gets this high. Honestly, they could have ended this with a Wily capsule and it still would have been satisfying. Still glad they threw us the twist with Sunstar though. Seeing Wily get plastered by the very interstellar weapon he unleashed is incredibly satisfying, not gonna lie. Let's face it, with all the crap Wily's pulled, he deserved some karma after all these years. To think that Dual Override is releasing in the year of Mega Man's 40th anniversary. Think about that. 40 years since the Blue Bomber faced the original 6 Robot Masters? 40 years since he first dealt with the pain that is the Yoku blocks. 40 years since he first stormed Wily's fortress. And 40 years since he dealt with this contraption that Wily apparently cobbled together at the last minute. That's why you never underestimate your enemy. Something which Wily has apparently never learned. Some genius you are, Al. Despite the challenge of this original machine, Do Not Steal, it's been overshadowed by its contemporaries over the years. Thankfully, it got another chance when Capcom took the original Mega Man and made it cute. Mega Man Powered Up is the sort of game that gets overlooked in the grand scheme of things, mainly due to it being released during that awkward period for the franchise. That being said, however, it's one of the best remakes out there. The chibi art style really nails that Saturday morning cartoon vibe. They added 2 new Robot Masters, you can unlock all the Robot Masters as playable characters, and there was even a level creator. As for how they handled the Wily machine, well, they did a lot more than expected. At first, it looks like a skull tank, moving back and forth and firing at you. On easy and old style, it'll be classic energy balls, but on normal and hard, he'll use the Robot Master weapons against you, even having his UFO changing colors based on what weapon he's using. Honestly, that's one of the smartest ideas from a Wily machine in the whole series. What also makes it smart is that its weakness will change depending on what weapon it's currently using. When you destroy the first phase on normal or higher, Wily will tinker with this machine until it looks more like the original. Now he'll mainly hover up and down while continuing his plan of changing weapons every so often, while occasionally, depending on your character and mode, either sprouting mechanical arms to rush at you or launching one of those spiraling shots at you like in the original game. And keep in mind, you can interrupt his attacks by using the correct weakness at most times. The time slow won't stun him since it doesn't do direct damage. This ability to adapt is what makes this machine so unique, even though it's a remake of the first Wily machine. Changing weapons, and by extension weaknesses, on the fly is also a call to another Mega Man villain who had a similar gimmick just a couple years back. Lumine, the twist villain from Mega Man X8. His first form had the same idea, using the overdrive attacks from each of the Mavericks from that game, and having his weakness change accordingly. And I think if Capcom did this a bit more often, it would make for even more exciting boss battles. Which makes me sad that the game didn't sell well. I would have loved to see how Powered Up 2 would have looked, even if New Style would have probably nerfed the Metal Blade. Mega Man 9 is the game that fully legitimized the retro revival period and is still my favorite game in the franchise. It's a game that knows what it is and fully embraces the Blue Bomber's old school roots. If you want to know more about it, I've got an old video about my top 10 favorite Mega Man games from way back when, if you want to dig up the past. As for Wily's big plan, still probably the Dark's most ingenious plot to date. Still, you gotta suspect that Wily planned for the possibility that Mega Man would ultimately figure him out, judging from the trickiness of his castle. And waiting at the end is the typical boss rush, after which you
open the door, get on the floor, everybody do the dinosaur!
With so many machines that Wily's made to date, you gotta wonder why he hasn't done animal motifs for his mechs more often. But honestly, he can't do much better than picking to base his first animal-styled Wily machine on a motherfucking T-Rex! In fact, this is the second most intimidating design for a Wily machine yet. But obvious dangerous design aside, this is one of the best designed fights in the whole series, and it starts with a genius first phase. As the Jurassic Park animatronic hovers back and forth, it will spit explosive bouncing eggs at you. What you need to do is shoot it back and position it so that it hits the Dino Menace straight in the jaw. This turns into another round of Dead Man's Volley because the egg comes bouncing back at you the first 2 times. This tests your mastery of positioning and, dare I say it, physics, in a way that makes sense for Mega Man. Magma Bazooka's 3-way shot or the Laser Trident's bigger hitbox really helps here. Once the faceplate gets blasted off, Wily takes the direct approach, as in he'll try to stomp on you, charge at you, and breathe fire down on you. This phase is also about positioning, but more of the baiting type. The way you position yourself with Wily's other attacks will be key to making sure you can jump over the flames, because you do not want to be cornered in this part of the fight. As always in this part of the fight, your target is Wily's mustachioed mug, with its primary weakness being the concrete shot. Finally, there's the capsule. Just like always, it will appear, attack, disappear, then reappear in another location. There are 2 different attacks here. The first is a spread of 4 lock-on shots, which only zoom towards you once, which is a lot easier to handle than Wily Capsule 7. In fact, it's arguably more manageable than Wily Capsule 8. The second is trickier. It fires 2 lines of sparks, one above and one below. The low sparks travel along the ground while the high ones drop down on you a few columns apart. This requires precise positioning to avoid. The capsule's weakness is the plug ball, the most awkward possible for this fight, but honestly, just hit him however you can. This is a fight that tests you on precision in dodging, proper positioning, and the mastery of your weapons. Combine this with an intimidating design and a menacing theme, and you've got a Wily machine that's hard to top. Hard, but not impossible. After all, this is number 2. Now before we move on, here are some honorable mentions. Wily Machine from Power Fighters. Cool design, but Stunlock City, baby! Wily Machine World 3. After the stage leading up to it, a relatively easy final boss is a mercy. Wily Machine 3. How many of you beat this thing without cheesing it with the Rush Jet? Wily Press. Whatever you do, keep moving. And now let's see what the Arcade Nation has to say with this month's patron picks.
It was quite hard to choose one, but I decided to go with Wily Machine 2. It's the first one to use the iconic blue UFO, and it has quite a few appearances outside the classic series, whether it's Castle of Dragon, Dugatia Lost, or the most recent Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. That in itself gives Wily Machine 2 quite a storied legacy.
Wily Machine 6 isn't the most complex boss fight, but having the screen gradually shift while having to avoid getting crushed by spikes makes for one tense boss fight. Plus, it sets up the plot point of Wily getting arrested, which lasts all one game.
Wily is one of the most stubborn villains in video game history, right up there with the likes of Bowser, Eggman, and Dracula. No matter how many times he ends up begging for mercy in a pile of busted machine parts, he's always back up and running with a new twisted scheme for world domination. The dude's gone through so many Wily machines he could open up his own museum instead of raiding the ones that already exist. But if you want your machine to look threatening, it never hurts to have a cutscene. Well, not that one. Honestly, the fact that Mega Man fights this tank in a cutscene, save for the antenna, is a bummer, but when you blow your way through the tank, chase Wily to his spaceship, and then blow your way through that, Wily's done playing around. And now, we bring on the cutscene. Okay, so right away we get to the first thing that makes the Wily Robo Iron Golem stand out from the rest of the crowd.
Presentation!
You thought the Wily machine from Wily Wars was big, but this one is 2 screens tall from the torso to the head! It's not even in a complete state, and Mega Man still looks at it and thinks, haha, I'm in danger! And you will be in danger if you're not paying attention. Not only is the cannon on its chest capable of firing energy at you, but you'll need to dodge or jump on this mech's massive fists, which, by the way, can also slam the ground to drop debris on your intruding ass. Also, that cannon, that's your first target. You can try to jump on the fists as they punch at you to get the height you need, or you could try using Rush Coil, or you could do what I did and finally get some use out of that damn Power Stone weapon. Eventually, you'll bring the head down to your level, and the first thing the head will do is try to suck you up like it's dinner time. That's also the only time that it's vulnerable, so you'll need to balance keeping your distance with making Wily dislike smoke. Then the machine fires a bunch of sparks from the antenna on top, so you'll need to dodge those. Then it pulls its most dangerous move, the simple act of charging at you. It can go to the edge of the screen too, so dodging it is out of the question, but you can push it back with your buster to make sure you don't get squashed. But even when the body of the golem goes down, Wily has one last phase, a capsule fight in which he can blow apart the ground you stand on. I'm honestly surprised that Wily doesn't try that trick more often. Are those kinds of bombs expensive too? And after every 2 of these, he'll hover to the right, dropping bouncing balls behind him. Unlike most Wily capsules, he never comes down to your range, meaning you'll need the Rush Coil, or a weapon like the Pharaoh Shot or the Belay Cracker, which can be fired upward. And even when you deplete Wily's health for the final time, the screen will still scroll one last time until the pits are off screen, so you still need to be careful not to fall. For a hidden gem like Mega Man 4 on Game Boy to be hiding such a comprehensive fight is impressive in all honesty. From the presentation and imposing size of the golem itself, to the tense boss theme for Wily bosses in this game, to the attention that you need to win, this one literally stands tall among Wily machines, and shows that Wily actually can be a genius sometimes. And that leaves us with the waiting until next year for Mega Man Dual Override. And for now, we're just getting tidbits of information, like that little bit of gameplay, that tease of Proto Man's whistle, and those tantalizing silhouettes. I'm just hoping this game does well. Capcom did say they wanted to bring Mega Man back into the spotlight. I'm the Quarter Guy, and until next time, the arcade is closed. Okay, so I've been thinking. What would be the most Midwest arcade game ever made? Here's what I came up with. Hey there everyone, QG here. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, hype, leave a comment, and share the video around. Feel free to check me out on Blue Sky and my live streams on Twitch. If you want to help my channel out, you can become a channel member or support me on Patreon. And don't forget about my campaign to support the Trevor Project. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.